Hello everybody and welcome back to Creativity in Progress. This is episode 4, which to be honest seems a little bit crazy because this is the 5th week of me recording, and even that in itself, just the consistency, and if you know me, you know that I have a bit of an ADHD brain and I find it really difficult to kind of stick to things sometimes. And I think this journey and this whole new sort of like me sharing my story has been really, really terrifying, and I've been super overwhelmed with the response and the support from so many of you, and I'm just so incredibly grateful because you're making this easier, and because of your incredible feedback I feel like these episodes are helping quite a few of you, and that's making it almost a bit like a responsibility for me to stay consistent, because I feel like I'm responsible for delivering these episodes to you each week. And I now have Sundays, that is my non-negotiable record day. So here I am sat on Sunday at lunchtime with Charlie as usual in his dressing gown underneath my desk, as he has just been for a long walk, and yeah, I'm here and I'm sat down ready to record this episode for you. And the subject that I really want to discuss with you today is about patience, because I feel like as creatives we have to be incredibly patient, but we live in a world that having patience isn't really a thing anymore, and we are often kind of used to getting instant gratification or looking for instant dopamine hits, and so many of us get frustrated when we don't get the results that we want. So in today's kind of episode I want to help maybe advise / teach / give you some tools to help you navigate a little bit and embrace having a little bit of patience within this journey, because again it's really, really crucial. So I want to start off by saying that I think when a lot of us start a new journey, whether it's as a creative, whether it's in business, whether it's to do with fitness, whatever it's about, we kind of feel like we have to have everything in place and we need everything to be perfect. And I kind of call this a bit of perfection paralysis. So we're literally so scared of things not being perfect that it stops us from starting the thing that we really want to do. And that could be, for instance, in this creative field, you don't have all the materials, you don't have all the equipment, you don't have all the knowledge. And that a lot of the time can really hinder us and stop us from starting something we're really keen to do. But I think you have to kind of get used to starting things when they feel a little bit messy or they feel a little bit uncomfortable. Like, for example, this podcast or this video cast, which it will soon, I'm going to try and put it on Spotify and Apple Music this week, so it is technically going to be a podcast. I mean I had a microphone that's been sat here for like the last 2-3 years, and I have an old vlogging camera, and I don't have all the filming equipment. I don't have everything I would like to do. I didn't have a clue how this was all going to come together. I still don't know that I'm doing this in the right way, in the right format, the way I'm recording the audio, everything like that. Like, I don't have it all sorted, and in my head I was like, well, therefore I'm not going to be seen as professional, and I don't have all the knowledge, I don't have all the equipment, so who's going to listen to me? And I think you kind of have to get used to not having things in place, because for some reason, if you're anything like me, but it makes you stay a lot more consistent and it makes you feel like you're making progress. Whereas if you have everything in place, I often find that a lot of the time, if I've splurged and I spent money on buying a lot of equipment or a load of oil paints or a new camera, it will sit there in its box and I won't actually touch it because I'm so scared of having all the, like, basically all the gear and no idea. So I feel like if you start when things are a little bit messier, it makes it a lot easier to stay consistent and to keep chipping away at things that you want to accomplish. And you kind of have to figure it out as you go. Like, as you know, through these episodes, each one I'm getting a little bit more confident, or I'm learning something new. And when it comes to Spotify, again, I'm being a little bit hesitant with putting it on there because I'm like, oh, I don't have a logo, or I don't have an official title. Like, I've called this Creativity in Progress because, well, if you watch the intro video, you'll know why I've kind of called it that. But am I really sold about the title. Like, I'm very in my head about it. I'm like, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? And I don't have all the answers, and therefore it's really made me hesitant about putting myself out there more. But I know that these episodes are now helping people, so I will stay consistent. I will make it a thing, and I do want to make it a thing, and it is becoming a thing, which I'm actually a little bit proud of myself for, because it's not easy doing things like this. It's really, really not, especially when your brain's a little bit introverted, and like mine, it's a bit challenging. And I think because sometimes we feel like we need to have everything sorted, and we don't give ourselves the time and the patience to figure it out as we go, we often give up quite quickly. So, whether it's with a coloured pencil journey, or again, I talk about fitness quite a lot because the fitness is another big part of my life. But if I couldn't run as far as I could run before, if I've never run before, then I would have, it's really easy to give something up if you don't feel like you're very good at it. The first time I picked up coloured pencil, I didn't think I was very good at it, and therefore I didn't want to pursue it because I wasn't prepared to put in the graft. I wasn't prepared to put in the thingy. I like to get instant results, and I feel like that's a really toxic thing that society is teaching us, that we need to be good at things straight away, and if we're not good at something, then we're almost failing, and that's so not true. And that's why I want today's episode to kind of change the narrative on that a little bit. So I feel like it's super easy to compare where we are in our own journeys against the things that we see online or against other people, but I think we all have to remember that everyone starts somewhere. And especially when it comes to art, a lot of us will see other artists or other pieces of work online and compare our own work against them. And especially if you're working with the same medium, so like the world of coloured pencil. But you've got to remember that even though with coloured pencil, and I use that as an example because that is my medium, it's not easy to kind of create your own style, not with oil paintings, because coloured pencil is so precise, whereas if you paint, then obviously you can be a little bit more expressive with your brush strokes. Whereas with coloured pencil, because it's so precise, and a lot of us do photorealistic artwork, it's interesting because we do develop our own style because of the way that we draw and the way that our hands work and our eyes work. And we can't compare our work against anyone else's work because we physically can't create the same thing. So therefore, all our artwork is going to be so unique. So you can't compare your work and what you are putting out there to anything else that you see online, because your hands and your eyes and the way that you draw is so different. So like when I teach, and I'm saying, I'm using a light pressure for this part, my light pressure would be completely different to what you would perceive as light pressure. And you kind of have to learn and adapt as you go. And you can't have all the answers like straight away. And you also can't compare your work, because as I keep saying, everything about you is so unique, and that's what makes you you, and that's so beautiful. So that is almost... it's like your power, your own uniqueness and the way that you create. So allowing yourself space to do something that you love, regardless of the outcome. And I feel like that's the whole point of creativity a lot of the time, is falling in love with the process and letting go of the outcome. So this is why I think it's really important for us to stop comparing what we see online or ourselves and our own journey on our own artwork and who we are as people to what we see online. Because again, when we are artists and when we're creative, a lot of us do it for mental health reasons or for therapy. And I think that is, again, beautiful in itself, because we're creating space within ourselves to find peace with the artwork that we're putting out there and that we're doing for ourselves. But that's the whole point. We're doing it for ourselves. So you kind of have to fall in love with the process and let go of the outcome and stop comparing your work to other people online. And so falling in love with the process rather than just, putting, trying to compare and draw because you think you should be drawing because everyone else is drawing. And I think another thing when we talk about comparison, it's our own inner critic and it's our own inner voice that tells us that our work isn't as good as somebody else's. Or you'll look at somebody else's piece of work online and think, I don't know whether I can ever achieve that. But again, you need to try and be aware that that is just your own inner voice trying to keep you safe and trying to protect you, and it doesn't mean that that is true at all. And you kind of have to be stronger than that voice in your head and say, do you know what, I'm doing this out of love for myself, and because art is therapy, and it doesn't matter if what I put out there doesn't look like the way exactly what I want it to look like, because I am learning and I'm being kind to myself in the process of learning how to put something out into the world that wasn't there already. And that's the beauty of art. You're taking a blank piece of paper or a canvas and you're putting something into the world that wasn't there already, and only you have the capability of doing that. And that is what is so beautiful about art, in my opinion anyway. So when you create, you have to trust your process, you have to trust yourself, and you have to be kind and you have to be patient with yourself, because again, everything to do with art takes time and it takes practice and it takes self-empathy and self-love, and you have to be in this for the long haul, and you can't expect to see instant results, because there is no joy in that. There is no joy in just putting out work for the sake of putting out work. I adore what I do and I adore the creativity, and it's funny because even if I'm having a really bad mental health week, I will still draw, because it doesn't matter about the outcome. It's the way that drawing physically makes me feel, like having the weight of the pencil in my hand and putting that to paper. It just soothes my soul and I can't explain it. So it doesn't matter about the outcome at that point. It just, all that matters to me is actually creating in that moment. And of course, it goes without saying that there's been so many times and so many points within my journey, both within the business and me personally, where I have hit complete rock bottom and I've wanted to give up, and I've just thought, what is the point? This is so hard. I can't do this. I don't have the strength. I don't have the grit. I don't have the determination to continue, and I don't have the power to keep going, and all I want to do is give up. But I think when we learn to embrace those times, and we again are kind and we're patient and we're empathetic to ourselves, and just say, I hear you, I understand, and we validate these feelings and we acknowledge how we feel, but we kind of say to ourselves, I'm not going to give up, because this actually makes me happy, and I'm going to let go of the outcome. It doesn't matter, but I'm drawing out of love for myself, and because I want to give myself that time and that space to have a bit of creative therapy. And when you learn to trust the process, and you learn to be patient with yourself, and you learn not to throw the towel in and give up, then you build resilience and you build trust within yourself. And it's an important thing to, of course, acknowledge the way that we're feeling and acknowledge those emotions, and allow them space, but don't give up. But also know that it's okay to have a break, take a deep breath and rest when you need to, but ultimately just keep going. So a little story that I'm going to tell you about something that happened to me, and this is such a poignant thing that happened within my journey, and this is why I sort of can share, I feel like I can share my own experience with this, is that when I had hit rock bottom, when I was on antidepressants, I was having a really, really difficult point in my journey. I didn't have a clue. I was a uni dropout. I was in a ton of debt. I didn't have the knowledge that I do have now, and I didn't know how on earth I was going to make it work. I had hit breaking point. I was in and out of trying to get spotted by publishers. Didn't know whether I should go and try and work within a gallery. I had all these overwhelming feelings. I was completely just lost. I had all these prints created. They'd sat there. They'd not sold. I was put on antidepressants. I was really struggling. And I didn't want to draw, because I'd hit such a low point that I physically, like the thought of sitting down and drawing made me feel sick, because again, I was like, no one's buying my work, no one's gonna buy my work. I would get rejected by every single sort of person or publisher. My family at that point were telling me to go and get a proper job, and I didn't know what on earth I was going to do. My college and uni friends had all gone and got their degrees, and they were all settled in jobs that were paying them a salary, and that I was working in a pub in a ton of debt with no qualifications, and that was a really, really low point. And I did have to take a break at that point, and I went and worked full time in the pub, and I think I took about 3 months completely away from drawing. And it was just after the Tokyo, was it Tokyo or Rio? No, it was just after the Rio Olympics. I think it was 2016. So I think it was 2016, 2017 that this happened. And Instagram was just becoming a little bit more popular. I was noticing that more people were kind of jumping on coloured pencil, and I was watching some of the artists that I really admired at the time, and I did some research. I found out what paper they were using, I found out what pencils they were using, and I had earned a little bit of money from the pub, so I went and invested and spent some money, but I'd allowed myself that time, that breathing space to really collect my thoughts. And I started to draw for Allegro, not for anything other than my own personal, something that I wanted to do. And again, I posted it on social media, not for any particular reason, but just because I just wanted to post that I was sort of drawing again. And it got spotted by Charlotte, and I got invited up there, and she really, really helped me develop a lot of confidence with my own artwork again, but without hitting rock bottom, without taking that break and actually doing some work for myself and really trying to let go of the outcome and letting go of that perfectionism, is that the right word? But trying to let go of everything being completely perfect. I did manage to pause everything and then come back a lot stronger. And I think that when you let go of the outcome, and when you let go of trying to make everything perfect and trying to do everything because you need a purpose, then it suddenly becomes a lot easier to stay consistent, and because you fall in love with creating for the art of creating rather than the outcome. And you can't always try and chase the idea of perfection or a finished product. So that's what I mean. You have to kind of let go of the outcome, and you can't always, it's a bit different obviously if you're doing commission work or you've got a pet portrait that you want to do. But if you're just new to your coloured pencil journey or your creative journey, then falling in love with the process of creating is so much more rewarding than the actual finished product. Don't get me wrong, having the finished product in hand and knowing that you've really tried your hardest and you're really proud of that outcome is amazing. But actually, as I keep saying, the process of creating is the most magical thing about it. So fall in love with that process, because that is the thing that's going to keep you going even when you want to give up, is that feeling of creating. And that, for me, in amongst other things that I do on a day-to-day basis, gives me so much happiness. And I think it's creating those little pockets of happiness within your day-to-day life that really does help you stay consistent, and it really does help you kind of stay true to yourself and true to your outcomes and your goals and the things you want to achieve. And so for me, I really like, for example, my morning coffee that gets me out of bed in the morning, as well as Charlie, and taking Charlie out for his daily walk. My lifestyle and my routine is very steeped in very self-regulating things, just because I suffer a lot from anxiety and ADHD, and my brain is constantly like all the time, and I have to do things that keep me very grounded. Otherwise my brain literally feels like it's going to go into meltdown. So having things in place that allow me to stay true to myself but stay consistent and build those daily habits that keep me even and keep my mood steady and keep me happy, that is really, really important for me. So keeping drawing, taking a walk in nature, going to the gym, doing baking, whatever grounds you and makes you feel like you are really, really being true to yourself, I think is really, really important and key. So an idea that I'm gonna just tell you about quickly, and again, this really helps me. And when I started realizing this, now I started noticing that this was actually quite a true thing. It did again help me stay more consistent within both myself, my journey, and my business. But you've got to view your life in thirds. So the life works in thirds. So a third of the time things will be amazing, a third of the time things will be okay, and a third of the time things will be like shit, basically. And you've got to be prepared to have good days, mediocre days, and bad days. And it might seem that you're gonna get more low days than you will good days, but if you can kind of embrace those daily habits that keep you happy, then you won't notice the highs and lows as much, and you're staying much more consistent. And it's that consistency of mood that allows us to be able to create a lot more, I think. And we live nowadays in such a fast-paced world that we're consistently looking for external like dopamine hits and instant gratification from social media, from posting on social media, from even things like Amazon. You know, you can go onto Amazon and you can find the product and it can be delivered to you sometimes the same day. That 10 years ago, 20 years ago was so unheard of. We literally live our lives viewing 9-second video clips on Instagram and TikTok because our minds can't, consume anything more than that, really. Like, so many of us will watch a film in the evening, but we'll be sitting scrolling on our phones as well. Like, we're so not used to being patient to actually be dedicated to something, whatever that may be. And we have, along the way, I feel like, lost the art of patience. And on top of that, it's really easy when we come back and we talk about comparison to have moments where you'll go on social media and you'll literally be on there for 2 or 3 minutes and you come off and you feel like crap because you've been bombarded with advertisements, you've been bombarded with things you must have done before 6 a.m, you've been bombarded by influencers who make you feel like you haven't got your life together. You're viewing other people's work and you're comparing that naturally. You're kind of thinking, should I go and become an oil painter because I really like the style of that work? And it's really, there's so much external noise these days, and it makes it really, really difficult to stay true to ourselves and not feel like we're falling behind and that we are good enough. And I think, again, that's the unfortunate thing about social media and the world we live in now, because as much as a lot of us wouldn't have the lives that we do and the businesses that we do without social media, it can be incredibly detrimental to mental health and to feel like we're not accomplishing enough. So I feel like the point of today's chat is about kind of learning how to be more patient with ourselves. And I feel like patience is something that we need to incorporate and practice daily. It's a bit like a muscle. We literally have to exercise it like a muscle. So this is a daily, again, it comes down to daily habits and actually just being more consistent and practicing the art of being patient both with ourselves and the things around us and our work and things like that. So for example, when I started my journey, as I said, I was in a ton of debt, like tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt. I'd spent the only bit of my granddad's inheritance on the prints I couldn't shift, and I was battling some really, really inner deep dark thoughts and very low depressive moments. And the amount of steps that I look back at that time and I think, I remember sitting at my desk and I'd be scrolling on Rightmove, and I live in the south of the UK, which is arguably quite an expensive area, and I remember looking on Rightmove and I'd put into the search bar the lowest house price in, you know, a 10-mile, 20-mile radius. And it was a really, really rundown house, and there was a few sort of really rundown 2 up 2 downs in the middle of a city. And I was thinking, okay, well, that's still going to cost, I think it was like 190,000 pounds. And I was like, I'm in 40,000 pounds worth of debt. I have to pay off my student loan because I'm self-employed, and for me to be able to pay off to get a mortgage, I'm going to have to pay off my student loan. I'm going to need a huge deposit because I'm self-employed. I need to be able to learn to survive on my own. Like, the amount of steps in front of me just for me to be on the same path, not for any major goals at all. It's not like I sat there and was like, I want to become a millionaire. I didn't, and I still don't, and I've got no intention of, I don't even know where I want my business to go or what I want to do with it. I'm just very, very grateful and lucky to be in a position that I can do this and help other people along the way. But I think, looking back at that time, it felt like I was at the bottom of a mountain, and I had so many steps ahead of me, not for any, as I said, specific goal, but just for me to be on the same level as some of my friends who had left university that were in sort of corporate jobs and low corporate salary. And I remember sat there going, how on earth am I going to make this from being in debt and having very, very little to being able to purchase a house and actually have a life where I feel safe and I feel a little bit free. And I didn't have a clue. And I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers, and I'm not going to pretend that it's been easy, because it really, really hasn't. But I just wanted to be in the position that I could earn enough money each month that I could pay my bills and chip away at a bit of debt, and one day just be able to afford my own place. And it seemed so inconceivable at the time that I was like, I can't do this. And I wrote a CV, and I remember I went and applied for a few jobs, and I went for a few interviews, and I just sat there in the interview. I remember going for one interview, and it was like for like not telesales, but like marketing, sort of like after sales calls. And I was like, this is going to be awful. But this is my life. I have no, I've come from a very high achieving family, and I feel like I'm failing. And I think, again, that was a major trigger for my anxiety. And the only thing that soothed my anxiety was learning and going back to drawing, and actually saying to myself, I really need to try and take this seriously, and I really need to work out a way to market this. And it doesn't matter if I'm not exactly where I want to be right now. It doesn't matter if everything looks really messy. I just think I have to stay consistent, because one day, as I keep reading in books and online, like, consistency, I think, might pay off. And I think it comes down to daily habits and daily practices that you do every day, and know that you aren't going to get instant success. And instant success isn't a thing, despite what you see online and despite what you see on social media. And you have to think, right, I'm in this for the long haul. I really want to make a go of this. I've got to be patient to myself. I've got to be kind to myself in the process. And it doesn't matter if it takes me 5 years or 10 years or 20 years, because as long as I'm chipping away at it and I'm doing it as much as I can, maybe full-time, maybe part-time, maybe as a side hustle, one day I know that with the dedication and with practice and patience, I can achieve anything I put my mind to. But you have to cultivate a lifestyle that allows you to have trust and patience in yourself. So when I was in my really, really low place, I did have to ask myself some really deep, serious deep questions. I did have to look around my lifestyle and my life and ask myself, so look at where I currently am at. Am I happy? And I had to look at my daily habits. I had to look at the way that I was behaving. I was having to look at the people who I was surrounding myself with, and my lifestyle, and even routines, and what I was doing in the morning, what I was doing in the evening, who I was listening to, whether it was friends, family, even content online. And I had to kind of ask myself, and I pose this question to you as well, are your lifestyle habits and the way you live your life and the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, the people you're surrounding yourselves with, your circles, the content you're consuming online, are those things going to allow you to remain patient? When we have so much external noise and we have people in our lives telling us that you should have achieved this by this time, or you should have done this, and why aren't you doing this, and all of this external noise, it can make us lose faith and make us lose patience in ourselves. So you kind of have to protect your energy and you have to protect yourself, which I know is easier said than done, but you do have to know that this is your life and this is your one chance and one opportunity, and if you want to do this, then you need to kind of work out a way to make it work for you. And I know it's a really uncomfortable, and I know it's a really hard thing to ask yourself and for you to kind of acknowledge. But I think the other thing as well is you need to pay attention to how you internally speak to yourself. Are you kind to yourself? Are you patient with yourself? Are you being empathetic and gentle and saying, it's okay, I know we're having a bad day today, or I know we're not where we want to be right now, but we will get there. Are you cruel to yourself? Do you speak to yourself harshly? Are you impatient? Are you critical? Because again, it's our brain literally believes what we say to it. It's crazy. There's so much science backed up to this. And again, it's an episode for another day, because I love talking about psychology and I love talking about the way our brains works, but our brains literally do believe what we tell it. So a lot of the time you do have to kind of be in a position where you're faking it till you make it, or fake it till you make it, because our brains literally will believe it. So if you tell yourself, I can do this, and you consistently, it's like daily affirmations, which I know a lot of the time can seem a bit woo and a bit spiritual, but you do have to really believe it. And you need to tell yourself it, and in time, I promise you will believe that you can achieve anything. As I said, we unfortunately in this day and age live in a society, and we live in a world now where there is so much external noise and there's so much external just utter bullshit, to be honest, that it can make us feel like crap. We see influencers in various industries and even within our own creative community that can make us believe that we should have achieved X, Y, and Z by a certain point or a certain time. And, you know, whether it's a fad, like a new sort of technique or a new product or a diet or a fitness, and it's like 6 weeks and you can achieve this. Or even within our own industry, you know, you can see people who have shared their artistic transformation, you know, their pencil journey or their painting journey from 4 years ago to where they are now, and you think, oh wow, okay, it is possible to completely go from a complete beginner to something that, you know, resembles a lot more of a hyper-realistic portrait. But what they don't tell you, and what they don't put into words a lot of the time within these things, is that takes so many hours and so much dedication and so much practice, and it is a full-time job at that point. And a lot of the time you don't have the same time as other people. If you've got busy lives, you've got children, you've got partners, you've got, you know, lives, and art necessarily might not necessarily be a full-time thing for you, so you can't dedicate as much time. So I think we live in like this toxic narrative where people are like, if you buy this from me, I promise your work will look like this in a few weeks or a few months, and I can teach you every single technique. And for a lot of the time, people who teach online, like I teach, that's how a lot of you will know me, through teaching. But I'm not going to pretend that the way that I teach will be able to change the way that you draw. I'll be able to help you and I'll be able to teach you skills, but it comes down to your own daily habits and your own practice and the time you're willing to put in. And as I said to you right at the top, your hands and your eyes and the way that you work is so different to the way that I work, for example, that it wouldn't be right if your work looked exactly like mine. We're not meant to be carbon copies of each other. We're meant to be our own true authentic selves, and your work is meant to be, and it is your own unique superpower. So we kind of have to let go of the things that we see online and stop the comparison and just learn to be patient with ourselves, because people online are always trying to sell you the magic art of success or how to achieve X amount of things in X amount of time. And a lot of the time it's that external noise that stops us actually progressing and being kind to ourselves and staying consistent, because we feel so crap about things that we see online, and it's so easy to compare. And I think, that's the whole point of today's sort of chat, is I do think it's amazing a lot of the time that people are showing you what is possible within this creative community, and it is possible that with time and dedication and effort and empathy and all of those amazing traits, changing your style, changing your work, changing your life is possible. But it's learning how to embrace the process and falling in love with the day-to-day habits and letting go of that external noise and letting go of that outcome, and knowing that there is no end goal for this. It makes me sad when I see things online and it's like, I plan on achieving this year. That's great for you, but a lot of our lives don't look like that. And I want to achieve X amount by the time I'm this age, or I plan on making £1 million this year. That's great, but unfortunately a lot of our lives don't look like that, and there is more to life than having a real end goal in mind. And a lot of us are in this and in the certain things for short-term gain, and art and life isn't about short-term, it's about forever. A lot of us draw for mental health, and unfortunately there is no end point to mental health and our brains, because it is our brains. It's going to be something that sits with us and sticks with us for time and time and time, for months and if not years, and for the rest of our lives. So you've got to find daily things, and a lot of us, that will be creativity and drawing and painting and actually embracing the process and realizing that there's no end goal. And that's the beauty of this, is that there's no end goal, and you're in this for the long haul. And that's learning to fall in love with the process, because anything is achievable with time and patience and consistency. And I think that we must learn and realize that with all those things, and being truly authentic and trusting ourselves and the process and our journey, we can really achieve anything we put our minds to. So that was today's little episode, pep talk, if you will. I feel like I'm trying to, the whole kind of point of these episodes was I really wanted to be able to tell my story through these podcasts, and to be able to help at least a few people. And I know for the first few episodes they were a little bit more of my backstory and they're a little bit more raw, but one thing I'm really passionate about is actually diving deep into subjects such as perfection paralysis, imposter syndrome, being kind to ourselves, mental health. And of course some episodes will be a lot deeper than others, but I really want to be able to kind of teach and talk about subjects that I feel like a lot of us do struggle with. So I really hope you've enjoyed today's episode. I really hope it's not even taught you something. I hope that it's kind of given you a little bit of reassurance, I guess. And I really want these episodes, as I've always said, to be a safe space for us to build a really friendly, lovely, supportive community where things don't have to be perfect and things don't have to be achieved straight away, and that it's okay for things to be messy and things to look a little bit ugly and not to have all the answers, because that's life. That is life. And I think as we need to let go of this whole idea and of perfection and comparison, and not allowing ourselves to go down rabbit holes, and actually knowing that we're all humans and we're all just trying to do our best, and just trusting the process and embracing who we are and what we're about, and telling our stories the best that we can and helping other people along the way. So thank you as always so much for being here. I really hope that you have enjoyed today's episode, and as always, any feedback, anything you would like me to discuss, anything you'd like me to talk about in in sort of future episodes, please just drop them in the comments or send me a DM on social media. As I say at the top of every episode, and I will finish off by saying as well, I honestly cannot tell you how grateful I am for all your support and just all your kind words, and how incredible your feedback has been so far on these episodes. And again, in time, hopefully we'll discuss more and more subjects, and you'll join me on a weekly basis for this little like community of that we just talk about things and stuff and life. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave you today. I really hope you have an amazing day, whatever you're up to. I really hope you're having a really positive week and things are, going really well for you. Enjoy the process, enjoy the creating, enjoy creativity for what it is, and trust yourself. Don't give up on yourself. You've got this. I am proud of you. As always, sending you so much love, and I'll speak to you next week.